1 second. There we go. Hello viewers, Swiftlamer here, and welcome to another Lethal Company video. Today we're going to look at even more modded moons and rank them. For those who do not know, Lethal Company is a massively popular indie horror game. The game pits you as an employee for a mysterious intergalactic company. With a team of up to 4 players, you will go to an assortment of planets to collect loot. But such a simple task comes with a large risk. These moons are guarded by fearsome monsters who each have their own unique attack mechanics to kill the players, and if you don't meet the quota, which will eventually happen regardless as it keeps rising, the company will launch you into space. Since Lethal Company has amassed such a following and approval of its concept, some individuals have begun to make their own free separate add-ons to the game. All of the following in this video are available through an app called Thunderstore if you're looking to play these yourself. Back in March, I reviewed 24 moons and explained their various strengths and weaknesses. Some I thought were amazing, and some I feel needed a little more work. I also admitted I was aware I have only scratched the surface and promised to make an updated ranking, and trust me,
I'm a man of my word.
I'm actually kind of glad I waited this long to do it, however, because even though Lethal Company has lost a bit of its fire by now, there have been so many new moons to explore. Now before we begin, here's what's going to be different. The moons I ranked in my previous video will still be part of this ranking, but even though most of them have received updates by this point, none of my opinions have really changed, so I'll make explanations brief. If you want to know more about those moons, go check out my older video. I have also taken the comments into account. The large inconvenience was V50's toll on the APIs. I found myself unable to revisit any of these moons or visit new ones, even for the sake of getting footage for this video. So I had to take what little I ended up with and just roll with it. If there is an actual fix or working alternative to the level loader, please let me know in the comments. For most of these reviews, I had the Game Master mod installed, so I could sit back and review the sheer amount of details and visuals instead of focusing on the difficulty or planet cost. Although I do think there are too many mask-oriented moons by now, they were on almost every planet. But anyways, all moons will be treated as such, and no Little Timmy Mario Maker levels will get very far, assuming you and I have the same conceived notions about that game's community. Also, please note that I have no personal grudges with any of these mod builders, and please understand that their work, regardless of how it was done, does not represent their entire skill set or personality. So even if I have more favor for some and less for others, that grades their work as such, but not the builders who make them. And finally, I have to give a personal shout out to one particular mod maker, Tolian. In my older video, I explored 2 of his, at the time, 5 moons, and I didn't talk too highly of them. So seeing his next moons felt of the utmost priority to me this time around. I must admit, I was very impressed. Most of his newer moons are probably on par with Magic Wesley's moons, if not better. What exactly did he do? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. Now let's count down the fan-made galaxy of modded moons. Again. Number 85. Epstein... wait a minute. What in the actual world convinced you that this was a good idea? Stop trying to memorialize this degenerate. It's wrong and it's not funny. This can only belong at the bottom of the list. Doesn't matter how the moon itself plays out or looks when you name it after a sex offender. Moving on. Off to a great start. Number 84. Big Boo's Haunt by Panman. It pains me to put a Mario-related map this low, but it's deserved. Because guess what? You can't go into the building. No, seriously, there is no way into the facility. It may have been another one of those 1/1,000,000th of a chance bugs, but I doubt it. Shame really, as there isn't much to look at outside either. Don't know what happened, nor do I know if this will be updated, but I hope it does, cause it desperately needs one. Number 83, Melon's Test Moon by A Tasty Melon. The test part is really warranted. This moon was filled to the brim with bugs. I couldn't jump once in the water, and the normal water mechanics did not apply. The ladders around the ship did not work, and I almost clipped through a wall. I never even actually managed to get into the facility. This moon is in severe need of an update. Or maybe not, it is a test moon after all. That ship in the ocean looks pretty though, which is actually incredibly ironic since you can't even go out to it. Number 81, Iridian by Amazing Pyro and Goofs. So imagine Etern and Celestria, but with even less things occupying the wide open space. Writing the description for this one, I can't believe I put it this high. There is no indication, no additional decorations, no theme, no nothing. At least the difficulty is pretty standard, if it really meant anything, but you don't even know where you're supposed to go. The one positive I could really say is it's the first moon on this list to not be filled with bugs or not functional. But still, that shouldn't be a very high bar to surpass. Someone could probably do this in 10 minutes with a map maker. This moon is kinda just bare minimum. Number 80, Ducky by Fire Noobsta. What can I say? It's pretty basic. It's a basic layout, streets, satellite, sheds, and a water tower with a smiley face on it. Navigation wasn't that bad, but the experience itself isn't that intriguing. It seemed like a work in progress, but it's not really noteworthy in the vast universe of moons. It gets frequently updated, however, so maybe worth checking up on from time to time to see how things develop, but it's still really the same moon with the same flaws. Number 79, Castra by G7 Exit. Another moon based on a separate IP. I do not understand this one at all. In fairness, I have not played or looked into The Last of Us, and if I had, I probably would have known where to look. But I have never found the entrance, and I spent a full quota looking for it. Not a day, a quota. Where this moon tries to bring in its strengths is having an explorable city, but there is nothing in those houses, and no point in even going through any of them as a result. Even if you're looking for quality or trying to play the game. Could navigation be a little easier? We may never know. Or let me rephrase that, I won't. Even if this gets updated, I don't think I'll come back to it. Number 78, RMS Titanic by G7 Exit. Listen, I know my PC is relatively less complex, but it's not that weak. Loading issues were of great concern on this moon. It was running at one singular frame approximately every 1.5 seconds. Yikes. But I know what loading issues look like. This is not a desktop issue. This moon is chock full of bugs, and it took me almost 7 minutes to fully navigate the ship. As a result, this one has far less replay value than any other functional moon on this list. Unlike Melon, however, you can still actually play the game, but it's still in desperate need of fixing. Number 76, Festival Village by Holographic Wings. Has some things going for it, but it doesn't have much replay value. Even though it's a perpetually foggy moon, the entrance is not nearly as tedious to get to as it may seem. The village itself, while certainly festive, doesn't really look peak quality. The price is affordable, but the loot still isn't worth much, and it's just not that fun to revisit. I love the holidays as much as everyone else does, but I don't love celebrating it working for the company, and for seemingly not as much on a low-quality vacation destination. Number 75, Ether. Yup, Ether, by Lethal Mood Team. Yup, a bigger one, a more well-known one, all the way down here. This moon just didn't really offer a good time. It shares Asal's low-quality aesthetics and tries to make something new out of it. In fairness, the new additions are pretty good. A city siren, new ways of maneuvering around the terrain, and sometimes a train coming right through the facility interior. However, I think this moon has a little too much. The additions distract from the actual goal of extracting scrap. Navigation is actually pretty difficult, and if you don't know what you're doing, and I sure didn't, then you're out of luck. After I saw a few more videos, I realized maybe I was a little unfair in my original report, but it still sits in this position I was going to give it beforehand. You'll have to visit this moon several times to understand it. The loot often isn't worth the replayability. Watch a separate video before playing this one. You'll get a better experience than I did. Number 74, Gorgonzola by Nikki. You probably guessed, it's a moon made of cheese. While a fun premise, the layout wasn't nearly as appealing or used to its true potential. It was a flat field with one river in between the facility and the ship. And that's about it, really. While bland, I'll give a few points for creativity. Can't wait to see if this one will be updated. Number 73, Sargis by G7Exit. While I'd prefer to give points for this one for recreating an urban environment, I've seen this theme several times by now, and this one sits at the bottom of that particular chain. Some of the models were not cropped fully, and exploring wasn't that appealing. It mainly circulates around one block, and there were troll fire exits, making first-time navigation rather frustrating. Some models were effortful. There were unique vehicles and some other unique building frames, but it still felt like a rather hollow moon to explore compared to others. I don't foresee this one getting updated outside configuration fixes, but even then, it still gives a better time than either. Number 72, Little, am I saying that right? By Passiert, am I saying that right either? A regular roadside store. Sounds pretty simple on the surface, and it was. I have never seen a monster spawn in this moon, not one, inside or out. And it doesn't make much sense because the loot is expensive, and for the most part easy to find. It kind of felt like a company break. What's even stranger is that the cars on the road in between the ship and the store don't hurt you. I turned Game Master off just to test this, they do in fact do no damage. Though I do think this will be fixed in a later update, can't wait to hopefully be there when it happens. Number 71, Echo Reach by Tolian. What was this map supposed to be? It's a satellite in the middle of the desert. That's pretty much it. It's hard to see anything through nearly perpetual dust clouds, even though it's obvious you're supposed to go towards the satellite, but believe it or not, it gets even stranger than that. The entrance is surprisingly unclear to find or be directed to. In fairness, I played this in its very first stages and have not had the chance to replay it, so things most likely have changed, knowing Tolian's dedication. But as it stands, this is the weakest in his lineup, but mark my words, it gets much more interesting from here. Stay tuned. Number 70, Telemon by Team Bites. Little blocky, chippy, looks a little unfinished. This is based on a Roblox game? That actually makes a little more sense now. This moon is, yeah, it's kinda just there. It looks like a 360p rendition of Abandoned Manor. There is not much complexity to this moon, and I would not really recommend visiting this one, unless you're interested in 2 custom shovels. You gotta be kidding me. Unless you are a Roblox player who can usually warm up to things like this, your business and time would best be invested elsewhere. Number 65, Luna by Spaz Jr. I've seen quite a few moon-based moons, and this is one of the better ones in that lineup. This moon started as a basic one, but its updates saved it. The rockwork and additional sets are very impressive. Getting to and back from the entrance is easy to understand. Perhaps once again it just comes down to comparison. This moon still doesn't live up to the full potential, and frankly, replayability isn't as high as I originally thought it would be. I praised this one quite a bit after visiting it for being such a different take on lunar-based maps, but this far in retrospect, it was more just okay. Number 64, Camino by Pure Mask. Look, I love a Star Wars reference as much as the next guy, and honestly, it had to be quite a challenge making this particular moon over others from the franchise. Details were spot on and matched up with Lethal Company's systems. The entrances do not work favorably, putting you in very different locations, as in, you can't circle back to the ship, you gotta go back the way you came. So in that regard, fire exits are useless, and your sense of direction has to be very good as a result. Now, this wasn't really a problem for me, but it could end up proving very difficult to others. And if you do decide to try it, well then may the Force be with you. Best of luck. Number 63, SCP Site-19 by LC Into the Darkness, a dreary and rundown planet. While ultimately Zingar's take on an SCP moon is better, this moon is certainly noteworthy. It's a long walk to the facility, and there's little space to hide from monsters, and the SCP interior was not compatible, though I believe that has already been fixed. So really, it just provides a good challenge. Where it lacks is, it feels incomplete. Some assets look unnatural or out of place. And other moons attempted to pull off the experience this moon tried, but better, so it sits here. If you're an SCP fan, I would recommend, but otherwise, your time is probably spent better elsewhere. Number 61, Ganymedes by Boniato. Tried visiting this moon almost a month before actually getting a chance to review it. Downloading issues. I finally get in, and it looks like a watered down version of certain other moons I visited before. Exploration wasn't that enjoyable. For example, having unclimbable cranes when it looks like you're supposed to use them. The addition of unique collectible scrap did make for a better time. As a side note, difficulty is through the roof, with dogs often spawning before your clock even starts. If cast wasn't difficult enough for you, then you should absolutely check this one out. But don't think I'll be coming back to this one anytime soon. Number 60, Halo Mod Pack by Mandapalooza. Now before you get confused, allow me to explain. Mandapalooza created 11 moons based on Halo battlefields, but for the most part I had an almost identical experience on each one, carrying around a shotgun and gunning down mimics, not even bothering to enter the facility most of the time. So because of that, I will rank these 11 as 1 on the overall placement, but on that 1 they will be ranked separately. I'll make explanations as brief as possible. Blood Gulch, a lesser Hyrule field on so many levels. Hanging High. How in the world do you get back up to the ship? Chiron TL-34. Why does it look like this? Boarding Action. Felt like a first-person twist on a 2D platformer. Battle Creek. I have never seen so many mimics in my life! Holy crap! Ascension. I actually got to go into the facility on this one. That's an accomplishment at this point. Lockout. Compact, but not nearly as stressful as the others. Sand Trap. A starship buried in the sand. Sounds familiar. The Pit. Ironic, because it isn't a pit, it's a forested hangar, and it's a good moon. Last Resort. Probably had the most detail, but hard to navigate. Still better than I expected. Valhalla. The most expansive and detailed of the moons takes the cake as the best. Number 59, Asteroid 13 by Magic Wesley, the ultimate lunar-style moon. The moon is too dark, but in response to that, it offers a cool mechanic, a light switch to make the place light up. This also features some embedded monsters in the ground and blocked fire exits, both of which are on other moons made by this creator. Despite lightly reduced gravity, moving around this moon isn't the most pleasant experience. There's too much space in between the ship and the entrances. Even if one person stays behind, you're only gonna manage to make 2 or 3 scrap runs. It pains me to put one of Magic Wesley's moons this low on the ranking. But as other moons have most of the mechanics this moon has, but ultimately just gave a better time than this one. Number 58, Castle Grounds by Team Bridget. A highly acknowledged moon in the community, serves as a faithful shout out to an iconic game. Every quality of this moon is high enough to earn respect. So why did it not crack the top 50? It doesn't really try to do anything different, unlike another Mario map not mentioned yet. It also doesn't feel like much originality had to be put out for it. It also has a more tolerable amount of open space than Hyrule Field. I don't really know why, it's just kind of a middle map. There's nothing really wrong with it per se. Guess that should just warm you up for what to expect. It's not in the top 50 and I'm already saying from here on out they're good. Oh, and in case you haven't figured it out, the cake is a lie. And even if it wasn't, it wouldn't be salvageable. Number 57. Okay, I'm gonna have to try and say it. My Court Item by Sensipi. This moon is a straight up fever dream. As a first level in the overhaul moons pack, it's just crazy. The difficulty was undermining, and the navigation may be the hardest one in this video. The entrance is not obvious or easy to find in the slightest, but the positive effect that has is you truly get to experience the imagery this moon has to offer. It kind of resembles the Mad Hatter Wonderland level in Arkham Origins, right down to the teacup platforms on the river. I probably would have placed it lower if it came down to just level design, because the facility has got to be more obvious to find. But just because of how it looks, it's this high. Always come back with good screenshots for this. Number 56, Bozaros by Lethal Matt. A clever concept, but didn't provide much challenge. Navigation and theming were above average, taking on a circus theme park appearance that is totally not related to any other form of third-party media. The entrances are easy to identify. I think I remember hearing a unique ambiance near the Ferris wheel, but like I indicated earlier, it's a little too easy. Nothing spawned outside, and none of the separate weather conditions really change anything, so replayability is a troubling matter. I really do appreciate the creativity and integrity behind it, however. And to think detail is the most important factor in my reviews, and this only places number 56. It only gets better from here, I promise. Number 55, Sykes Sanctum by Tolian. Okay, I will admit, I only got half of the experience, so do better than I did. This moon is based on a shutdown asylum, if the name didn't make it obvious. But this experience is only complete with Dantor's Mental Hospital, a unique interior. Many influencers used this on this map before I reviewed it, so I was stupid and thought it was part of the moon's initial download. On the other hand, however, the moon doesn't really do much for me without it, especially since Tolian has another moon on his record that has a similar experience to this one, but better. It gives a false sense of peacefulness and eeriness, but it really wasn't the full package without that interior. Number 54, Harleth by Tolian. This moon is practically defined by its almost harmless inhabitants. The moon's exterior is a gas-filled atmosphere filled with spore lizards and hygrodeers. It was an unusual idea, and it was a little comical. Navigation is pretty tricky, however, especially going back to the ship. Despite a bright aesthetic, the direction is not incredibly clear. I would recommend it for intermediate players. It is a fairly good experience. Probably won't revisit it, but I do like the premise. Number 53, Vegeta by F4M Creations. Was this based on another franchise? Don't remember, and it doesn't really matter. This is a short, easily navigable, and seemingly untouched map. This moon involves a castle instead of a facility, so I would recommend downloading the Scoops Variety Pack mod to include the castle interior. I don't have a whole lot to write home about this one beyond that, but I think it could appeal to many people. It has a good layout, difficulty can range greatly, and it's a pretty good experience. But again, I don't think it does much for me beyond that. Number 52, Sierra by Autumnness. This one is almost unreasonably expansive. There is a lot of space to operate and move around on the surface, but there's very little indication on where you're supposed to go. I mean, it seems obvious you have to go up, but it's hard to figure out how. On top of that, it's very treacherous. You take a wrong step, you're not coming back from that fall. Despite this, it feels like a real vanilla game-esque moon. It will take more than one visit to understand this place. Number 51, Callisto by Reputable Individuals. What can I say? It's kinda just there. It resembles the company building, but if it stopped storming. It looks like an original variation of Camino. Navigating has actually been getting increasingly difficult with each update, and so has difficulty. Personally, I'd still recommend it for experienced players, but it's not that fun to revisit. It started good, but now I'm not so sure it's on the same course anymore. Number 50, Taiga by Quack and Cheese. You probably guessed it already. This moon is based on a Minecraft biome. This isn't a mere reimagining of Minecraft, however. It has been formatted to fit more with Lethal Company's graphic system and layout. When it makes up for the fact you can't change the surroundings, it gives an easily navigable layout. However, the formula still doesn't quite work for Lethal Company. Exploring is still an awful pain. The limited energy of players makes jumping around the terrain an often fruitless adventure, and your overall athleticism does not match that of Minecraft players. It's a faithful experience, and it did try, but it's just not worth coming back to. Number 49, Amplify by CharmGay123. This moon can be actually pretty dreadful during eclipses. It's dark and full of leviathans and... No! So aside from a lower frame rate, this moon's mechanics are very easy to understand. It uses the darkness to its advantage and is very clear on where it wants you to go. It's challenging and well oriented. I had a small inconvenience with downloading, but it was worth the pain to explore. I would not recommend this as one of your first moons, however, if you're looking to play new ones. Number 48, Eve by Rosy Pies. For how many problems this moon gave me with downloading, I had pretty high expectations. It's just a small canyon. Once under the rock, you get to see an underground operation, but as far as I'm concerned, this moon demanded a lot from my already weak PC, and the reward it reaped was not that worth it. It's got potential, but it did not fully deliver. Number 46, Echelon by Tolian. Tell me I'm not crazy. This place looks exactly like Brownstone High School from Phasmophobia. Okay, take aside the fact that I got PTSD and so many other memories the moment I realized it. This moon is easy to figure out and very detailed at the same time. In that regard, it could offer a good experience, even without the asylum interior unlike Psych Sanctum. Tolian really is getting better as he goes. This moon, even if it had made me relive old memories, is still a good treat. Number 45, Terminus by Sensipi, the other half of the Overhaul moons. This moon has less originality than Microdictum, but the layout was far less confusing. This time you knew exactly where to go, and the layout was straightforward, and the theme, per usual, was compelling. I'm biased for cemeteries, alright? It's easier for you to maneuver around the monsters than it is for them to see you. and each time you go, you may actually find a new entrance. About 40% of the crypts I walked up to have been fire exits. And on a side note, I would highly recommend pairing this with the Scoopy's Variety Pack mod to have a more fitting castle interior. It adds to the experience, trust me. Number 43, Crest by Guadin. It was actually a little difficult to tell that this map was snow-themed at first. This moon actually does better with its gameplay than its visuals. Not that it did anything wrong with that either. It was a rather simple design, but it's easy to walk around, find entrances, and make your way back to the ship. It doesn't really do anything different beyond that, but that doesn't bog it down. This is still a good moon with lots of replay value. It's also good for those looking for a foothold on modded editions, or for those who want to focus more on the game than being wowed. And once again, nothing wrong with that. Number 42, Transmission by Hivy. I've got to get better at pronouncing these. Harder than Rend, harder than Dine, easier than Titan. I figure that's the best way I could sum up this moon. This moon's layout is actually pretty tricky. There is a large wall in between the entrances and the ship, and from the ship's angle, it looks like you have to find a ladder to cross it. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that wasn't the case. Once that's out of the way though, then it's a piece of cake. Still talking about the exploration, of course. Difficulty, particularly in the facilities, are actually quite horrendous. But I stand by what I said earlier, it is still easier than Titan. Not by a whole lot, but it is. Number 41, Catalyst by Danielis. A simple but surprisingly effective idea. The only real thing this moon has going for it is a purple mist over the moon. Other than that, the layout is actually really good. It's essentially a slightly easier snow planet. It's not as hard to see or to navigate through the area. On the other side, its atmosphere is such that it could create more mystery and tension on the way back. It doesn't really do much different from the others, and at the same time it does. Regardless, it also has good replay value, so gotta give it props for that. Number 40, Affliction by Rosy Pies. Now this moon apparently is the result of two moons converging. The results seem to be quite catastrophic. The moon is actually massive. All the entrances are a good distance away from each other, and there are hoarding bugs just sitting in the open for some reason. Exploration, difficulty, and detail were all actually really good. I could actually see this being a moon in the regular game. However, such an expansive area can come at a cost. Some of the fire exits aren't real, they're just straight up impassable. So it could take a few tries to learn the ropes of this moon, but that's exactly what you would do in the main game anyways. Number 39, Vortex by Red Husky Studios. While the building is a bit more clunky, the execution is flawless and creative. Flying into a ship hangar of a larger self-destructing star cruiser, Revenge of the Sith style, as opposed to another moon, is certainly a unique idea. There is a lot of space to move around, and the layout isn't confusing. It could use a little more polish and detail here and there, but that isn't enough to rank it lower. For once in a rare instance in this video, gameplay matters more than detail. And even then, it still stacks up really well. Number 38, Outpost 31 by Lethal Matt. The description did not lie, it gave exactly what it promised. A sub-Arctic base, complete with towers, helicopters, and even tanks. Navigation is pretty good as there is a lot of space to roam around and sneak past monsters. However, the entrances are harder to find than other moons, and that bogs down the replayability. It's basically a slightly better looking version of Orion. It's a mixed bag, but it is worth checking out. Number 37, Calp Prime by Tolian. This place looks straight up like a GTFO hangar. There are so many doors, but only some of them you can walk through. I was fully expecting this to be another mask-oriented moon, but it wasn't. It was well-rounded, despite the door issues. Navigation was really good and evident on where you had to go. This also looked like Tolian's most detailed moon, or at least the one that took him the most time. But the replayability isn't that satisfactory next to the other moons. Doesn't mean it's bad, it still gives a good time. Also, ignore the danger level, this moon isn't that hard. Famous last words, maybe mimics will start spawning more. What have I started? Number 36, Sanguine by Tolian. I don't think the moon was supposed to land facing away from the entrance, but so what? It's easy to tell. You won't get misguided. In the clearing of mountains and forests lies a stone pathway to a small mansion. It still looks fairly developed for an abandoned area, and the music in the background may be the most relaxing and clear modded song yet. The only thing really preventing this from going any higher is it doesn't have much to offer beyond that, but it does not do anything wrong either. It plays well, looks good, and difficulty is okay as well. Nice effort all around, definitely worth the time. Number 35, Nimbus by Tolian. Got one thing to say. Flashlights are crucial here. This moon is incredibly dark. No, seriously, it's so hard to see anything that isn't illuminated. On the other hand, the things you can see through the darkness are some of the most beautiful imagery I've seen on modded Lethal Company. It kinda resembles the depth fungi from Zelda. And regardless, the entrance isn't hard to find. This is a very different experience in a good way. It probably would have been more fulfilling if I went through with a flashlight, but that's my own fault, not Tolian's. Great job, man. This moon is truly something special. Number 34, Zenith by Tolian. My only real complaint almost made me rank this low. The direction is a little confusing. Naturally, I ran in front of the ship expecting to find the entrance that way, but it was a large barren valley. But eventually, I found the real parts of the map. Behind the ship was several tunnels into a glacier. Zenith might also have the most polished snow and ice of this whole list, and considering how many of them I see and how biased I am for them, this was astounding. Even if dogs block your way back, there are more than enough paths to find a good alternate route. This was a very innovative moon overall, but maybe try to hint that the real moon is behind the ship. People could go the whole day without getting to see what this moon is really made of. Number 33, Solace by Audio Night. The last of the 3 Starlancer moons. While it's arguably the weakest of the 3, that by no means means it's a bad moon. It actually still holds up really well. It's not hard to navigate the area, find entrances, and get back to the ship. One of the fire exits is in a lighthouse right behind the ship. You don't see much stuff like that. I like it. So even if it is a more generic looking moon on the outside, it does play the best of the 3 Starlancer moons, and because of that, it still deserves a spot in the upper half of the list. Great job, Audio Night. No weak links in your lineup. Number 32, Desolation by Magic Wesley. It really hurts me to say this because it's one of my favorite moons aesthetic-wise, but its gameplay bogs it down a little further than I expected. It is obscenely hard to find your way past or around gaps, some of which I still haven't managed to clear without ladders. But like I said earlier, this moon has one of the greatest themings to date. It even comes with a new monster that has a "if it sees you, it'll kill you" mechanic. In fact, had gameplay factor been different, this may have been able to crack the top 5. But it didn't. Still a good effort, and pretty inspiring. Number 27, Old Ruins Sarhan by Old Ruins Sarhan. An interesting approach and design, also well detailed. There are cages dangling over the pits in between the bridge. Its pacing and navigation is also okay. But it's funny, because of that advantage, difficulty is actually quite hard. Beehives and dogs can take up valuable space on the bridge, making it nearly impossible to go back and forth to the ship and entrances. At least it was advertised like that. Had to expect something like this. It's still a good concept for a moon, and it does exactly what it sets out to do, and does it well. Number 26, Ubal Terra by Skeleton Studios. Okay, I have to admit, I was not ready for what this moon had to offer. When I first came across it in Thunderstore, I was expecting a low quality experience, but I was taken completely by surprise. Take aside the fact it doesn't look as polished as other moons. Skeleton Studios thought of quite literally everything. Good navigation, original songs for exterior and interior. On top of that, a brand new exclusive interior with unique scrap and additional obstacles, you name it. He even included new footstep sound effects to make it sound like walking on brain matter. That level of commitment was a shocking and pleasant surprise. And it needs a lot more attention and respect than what it's getting, because it's actually a really well put together moon and everything in it. Number 22, Nyx by Tolian. The most inspiring of Tolian's moons. Everything about this moon was incredibly original. I have never seen anything quite like it. It's free to travel to, the delivery pod drop point and the entrance are not far at all from the ship, so it's an accessible moon, its navigation is good, and its design is off the charts. So why is it not in the top 10? Well, you see... Oh, come on, not you again! Number 21, Argent by Tolian. What is this dying world I have dropped into? Tolian was working overtime on this one. A former seemingly successful metropolis, now overtaken by nature and abandoned. A premise many have probably seen, but if it keeps going in the right hands, like Tolian's, the idea just doesn't get old. The moon revisits a theme commonly explored and puts a special twist on it. The only problem is navigation. Because there is so much to this moon, it can prove difficult to find entrances and get back to the ship. This moon is what I feel Ether was supposed to be, and just better and more creative on most levels. Number 20, Cosmicos by Magic Wesley. Such mystery shrouds this moon. That's because it doesn't exist. It never has. Wake up, skip this segment, there is no such thing as Cosmicos. At least that's what the company wants you to think. Cosmicos is the strangest moon on this ranking, and it's not even a contest. The exterior is an eerie, bioluminescent alien forest so dark that it's hard to see cliff edges. The facility, while normal, is infected with a substance similar to the ones seen on Devastation, except these ones don't do damage. But it's very unnerving to just hunt for scrap and seeing this organism attaching itself to every corner of the facility. All in all, however, this all just makes for an incredible experience that I would highly recommend. If doing it with friends, keep all details anonymous. And it shouldn't be hard, cause, like I said, this moon doesn't exist. Number 19, Fission by Magic Wesley. Not as inspiring as his other moons, but still a notable and welcome addition. This moon is a toxic chemical plant that requires parkour to reach the entrance. The plant towers above the valley and really puts an intimidating feeling into you. The classic, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. But Fission does it way better than most other moons. On a side note, this moon would be on its head when coupled with the facility meltdown mod. A reactor meltdown would be perfectly natural in a place like this. Number 17, Gordion by Rosie Pies. Wait, no, hold it. Not that Gordion. This Gordion. This was actually a very clever idea. We get to look inside and see the company from a whole new view. In the midst of an evacuation, the company planet is lootable for scrap. But why though? If the company has fallen, why are we still collecting scrap? This moon has a unique interior as well, and it's a little disturbing. There are company secrets hidden in its walls, such as a tank with a crying baby Bracken, never expected that. Turrets that will try to shoot you but will break down before that can happen. Every idea that went into this map was surprisingly really good. The only downside for this moon is the difficulty, so unless you have the Game Master mod like I did, you will not get very far. The interior is overrun with monsters, every time. Number 12, Spectralis by Tolian. I said it before and I'll say it again. I am such a sucker for cemetery-related maps. This is my personal favorite of Tolian's moons, but it's purely just guilty pleasure. Statistically, it fell just a few steps short. Despite a captivating and chilling atmosphere, the layout is actually a little simpler than it may seem. That's pretty much the only negative about this map. To contradict that though, this moon has a beautiful gothic cemetery and small village. The contribution to the unique music absolutely helps. Even though there's no real sign of industrialization on this moon, its creative direction makes it still feel natural in a game like this. Amazingly, there's also not a one very specific monster that you'll run into every time, and not many other moons on this ranking can say they have that achievement. 10. Atlantica by Magic Wesley. This is probably the most unique of Magic Wesley's moons. It has a crazy amount of scrap items that can only be found here. The facility can also be flooded at various times, impeding your progress. The moon itself, while fun to look at, is tedious to traverse. Not only are the ledges incredibly narrow, but monsters can cut off your only access to the ship very easily. And per the usual rule on most moons, you go into the water, there's a little to zero chance you're getting out. It's a little too hard, but the variety and replayability this moon offers is surprisingly good enough to combat that difficulty factor. I would still recommend this map, and it is still a work of art. Number 9. Azure by Tolian. This moon shares most positives with Spectralis, but it's put to a larger scale. This moon has ruins resembling Mesoamerican architecture. The pathways are lit by large torches instead of lamps. There are excavation materials, but no sign of futuristic technology. The entrance and fire exits were also changed to look like stone artifact-oriented doors. It's a rather peaceful and majestic setting. It doesn't really feel fit for a Lethal Company-style atmosphere, but that in no way means it's a bad moon. It still plays and looks amazing. Tolian, have you ever considered making a full-on game of your own at this point? It was also clever how you had to think outside the box on some occasions. One of the fire exits requires you to jump on the railing even though it doesn't seem to imply it, and jump across the river to the other side. The real icing on the top should be a unique temple interior, but someone else can do that. Number 8. Uldred by Magic Wesley. I cannot stress how much... Actually, wait, yeah, I can stress about how good this map is, because Uldred is just that, a stressful moon. The moon centers around a slowly decaying and very dangerous oil plant. The oil hurts players if they try to wade through it, and it keeps rising as the day progresses, regardless of its weather conditions. So you take the catwalks, but then it gets even better. You're still not safe from monsters, and plates become unsafe as oil geysers erupt, blocking paths and forcing you to constantly be on the lookout for alternate pathways. Inside the facility, there is an even more lethal but thrilling obstacle. A chained bomb that warns you of its current radius before spontaneously exploding. This moon really keeps you focused and on your feet. It's really hard and adrenaline pumping. It will also leave an impact on most players who play, whether it be its difficulty or its unique atmosphere, but that also shows how good this moon really is. Number 7. Polaris by Magic Wesley. Imagine Metroid Prime's Phendrana Drifts, but made for Nintendo 64. This moon is absolutely breathtaking. There are random Leviathan sound effects around this map, and you still hear them when you're in the facility for some reason. And it made me think of an interesting theory. The large ice arches are Leviathans fully encased in ice, and that just made this map all the more interesting. Now that being said, gameplay can be a little frustrating. Despite a working elevator, you have to cross the water on floating ice platforms, and they can be a little tedious to learn. But on the other side, monsters will have just as hard of a time following you. This map has my utmost respect for presenting a challenge, but captivating experience. Number 6. Gritar by Magic Wesley. Yet another Magic Wesley moon. What can I say? This guy knows his stuff. This particular moon has a unique and pretty aesthetic. It kind of resembles an industrialized Ewok village. It's also incredibly straightforward to find entrances and fire exits. 2 fire exits are even connected by a bridge that cannot be accessed otherwise. It's a serenading moon, it's affordable, and it's good with navigation. Oh, and there's waterfalls. Can never go wrong with waterfalls. Number 5. Gloom by Magic Wesley. A more mysterious and less developed version of Acidir. Not literally, this is a more recent moon. It's also probably the most unsettling moon on this list. While the trek to the entrance is pretty long, it winds in the craziest of directions. Past small camps, into a tree stump which leads to a rock cave, and then to the facility entrance, which is past small cave ponds. I also reviewed this map alone with the Lethal Escape mod. There was a Bracken somewhere in those dark woods. You won't know how scary scary that was and felt on any other map but this one. For what it's worth, this moon is terrifying even without its difficulty problems, but boy is it an energizing rush. I can't wait to play this moon with other players. Number 4, Junik by Magic Wesley. You probably would have guessed, Magic Wesley continues his iron grip in the top of the rankings. This map does just as well with its mechanics as it does with its detail. There are at least 3 entrances, and many confusing roundabouts in the overgrown canyons. This map also introduces a unique enemy, a red flower. When touched will activate a carnivorous plant to eat you. Sounds weird, but it's actually fitting for this map and this game. What's even more mysterious is that there is no actual sign of modern technology anywhere on this map. So how is there salvageable scrap here? We may never know. But hey, at least we're gonna have a good time finding out why. Number 2, Crystallum by Tolian, the pinnacle of Tolian's achievements currently. Tolian took a seemingly basic premise, a crystal cave, and ultimately proved that it was not an idea to be taken lightly. There are ancient ruins, abandoned mining, and staggeringly beautiful rockwork, and all of them work together to make an immensely beautiful moon. The monster count isn't annoying. The path to the entrance, while a bit longer, is worth it as it takes you through various different tunnels and chambers. It also presents challenge, because if you fall off the decaying stone walkways, trust me, you aren't coming back. This map has it all and demonstrates Tolian's great work at its current height. That's the best I can describe it using only words and clips. Go play it to truly experience it. And that will do it for this video. I don't know if I'll make another video on this, especially since the lethal level loader is busted. Here is a quick count of honorable mentions, moons that I did not get the chance to visit. Pause if you have to. If there is a way to explore these moons post V50, and if you want me to review them or new ones, please let me know in the comments. I don't really care if you subscribe or not, but if you enjoyed, please leave a like and comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Maybe.